Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Philly Film Brothers podcast. I am Chris Domenico here along with
Dave Domenico.
Today, we're going to talk about the latest Spider-Man installment, Spider-Man Far From Home. In some ways, this is the third version of Spider-Man 2.
Yes, it is. And it is the second best Spider-Man 2.
Second. Okay.
Behind the original Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2.
Obviously, everything's better than Amazing Spider-Man 2.
You know, that Amazing Spider-Man 2 gets a lot of hate, but I really...
Rightfully so. It's a terrible movie.
Why? How's it terrible?
Are we here to discuss Far From Home, or are we here to discuss Amazing Spider-Man 2?
Just saying. We're talking about the history of Spider-Man 2s.
Nobody told Paul Giamatti that it wasn't a cartoon.
Well, and that's interesting is that, something like the last Spider-Man film, a solo film, had one villain, right? And usually you kind of expect, oh, well, they're probably going to have two villains. In the next one, they pretty much stuck to one villain.
And it worked.
And this one, and it worked really, really well. So it's difficult for me to rank the Spider-Mans, and that's a whole other podcast. But I think, where do we get started? So this is the epilogue to Endgame. You see a lot of the impact of the snap, or they call it the blip.
Which I was really glad to see. That a part of me was really worried that the MCU was going to just kind of gloss over that and just kind of move forward. But no, they really...
Yeah.
They showed that it had some very real lasting effects, even for like everyday people.
They kind of did take it a little lightly, I think, because it was like, oh, well, like we thought these people were dead, and now they're alive, and like it was kind of clever.
It worked from the point of view of high school kids, and having that information delivered to us by high school students on their like school news program,
their morning announcement program, which
was the best way to get that information.
Yeah. That did hold a little special place in my heart. But
I know that's what you do.
That's what I do professionally, every day. This is a movie that really depends a lot on Iron Man, quite a lot. And I think there's pros and cons to that. I think in a lot of ways, Spider-Man Far From Home, and I guess the Spider-Man franchise now functions as a sequel to Iron Man.
Or at least a spin-off of Iron Man.
Spin-off of Iron Man, yeah.
But there was no other... Marvel couldn't just go and do the Spider-Man origin story again.
No, I agree. No.
So kind of having it spin off from Iron Man.
Like a web? Spinning a web off of?
You did not just make that joke. Why do I do this? No, but I think that was a really effective way to bring it in. And again, Endgame had such huge implications from the blip to, the deaths of Iron Man and Black Widow.
You wouldn't think so watching Endgame. Which at least they acknowledge in this one.
They acknowledge her. They acknowledge Cap, who, even though he lived, he probably,
I guess they thought he was dead?
Well, yeah, because he went to the past.
Yeah.
And my man Vision.
Yeah, he finally got some recognition, so...
No, but I think that I'm glad that it took that time to devote to that, because there's a lot of issues that came up from that. Like, I loved hearing about how Aunt May just reappeared in her apartment and someone else lived there because it had been 5 years.
Yeah.
And how many people, spouses remarried. It's like, hey, I thought you were dead.
It's hard for me to wrap my brain around the idea of the snap, because even the snapping people back. So were they dead, or were they not dead, or were they resurrected?
They were not resurrected. Allow me to explain.
He knows.
This is how the snap worked.
Now, is this according to the movies? Is this according to the comics?
This is according to some very compelling information on the internet.
He means Reddit.
Yes. So because a lot of people, I'm going to clear this up right now. A lot of people were very critical of Infinity War when they said, oh, why doesn't Thanos just use the gauntlet to make more resources? That's not how it worked. Okay, so you had all the stones.
Right.
Power Stone amplifies the power of all the other stones to make them stronger, to do what it wants. The Mind Stone is what allows Thanos to basically do whatever he wants and give the order to those stones. That specific order.
I see.
The Space and Time Stone allows its effect to be spread throughout the entire universe, crossing space-time.
And the Reality
Stone and the Soul Stone kind of work together because it's theorized they were in the Soul World all along, but the Reality Stone is what literally erased them from reality itself.
So Thanos may still be in the Soul Stone.
Someone would have to snap him back, though.
Yeah.
So when Hulk did his snap, he just did the He, instead of giving the order to wipe out half the universe, he gave the order to the stones to bring those people back.
So you have to. I just wonder, like, do you have to like wish it in your head, like?
Yes.
Which is like that to me was odd.
But that's how the Mind Stone works.
Yeah.
So they weren't dead; they were just erased from existence. So for them, no time. For them, it was like you're sitting right here, and then all of a sudden, everything around you changes. That's what it was like for them.
Well, that being said, so Spider-Man: Far From Home, I mean, it's deeply embedded in the MCU, and it's very dependent. And I guess maybe that was my only thing. I liked this movie a lot. I thought this was a really, really solid sequel. I think I liked the first Spider-Man: Homecoming a little better.
I liked it better just because
slightly.
of Michael Keaton.
Oh yeah, and not to say Jake Gyllenhaal was great in this too. I mean, but
he's great, but you'll never top Keaton just being creepy.
And
I will kill everyone you love.
I was a little disappointed that he was out in this movie because I thought at some point they had talked about he was going to make an appearance or something, and I was kind of waiting for that.
Well, because at the end of Homecoming, they're kind of setting up the Sinister Six with him in prison.
Yeah,
which may come into play later.
It could. And that'll be interesting seeing them deal with different villains.
But on the subject of villains...
Mysterio... So, when I saw the trailer for this, and I'm like, oh, it's Mysterio. I'm like, obviously he's a bad guy. Now, you didn't know that.
Yeah, I did.
Did you know that? I thought we talked about this.
Everyone... I said, oh, in the trailer he looks like a good guy, but I know Mysterio is a villain.
Yeah.
So, I don't know that that's exactly a twist.
I mean, they play it like one, and you have to remember, like, there's a lot of people that watch the movies that don't know the comics, but still, Mysterio...
Well, true, because the revelation of the Winter Soldier being Bucky, comic book fans already knew that. But the casual moviegoer was surprised, in Captain America: Winter Soldier.
And it's not like MCU to change something like the Skrulls, which we'll get to. But I mean that was completely going against them in the comics, and that worked pretty well. So I thought, like, there's part of me that thought, well, maybe they might have him be good for something. Like, it's anything's possible.
Yeah.
I
thought going in, he would start as good and then turn evil.
You thought he was going to turn evil? Okay.
I thought they were going that route. So I was surprised that he was evil all along.
So you bought into the multiverse.
Maybe it's because I was just excited,
you know what?
After Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
People today will believe anything. That's Mysterio's. And what a powerful message for today. Like, that's I was reading an article about this. I forget where it was, but just the Spider-Man movies are very, very modern, very current in the sense that, you know, the first villain, like, so Vulture, was someone that really felt that he had been mistreated by...
I mean, he was legitimately screwed over.
Yeah, by society, by the government, and just say, well, let's just screw it all. I'm going to do this. And now we have someone that, you know, essentially is the fake news villain in a lot of ways.
It's frighteningly relevant, and in a weird way, Mysterio is the scariest MCU villain because that exists.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, it was almost like he had his own reality stone. You know,
just using technology. Now I like Jake Gyllenhaal. I think that you're right. It was a very powerful theme and message, and you know, incredibly relevant in today's world. But when it's revealed he's a villain, he gets a little too mustache twirling.
Yeah,
and gets really expositional with his henchmen, where apparently every disgruntled employee from Stark Industries is worked for him. Like, oh, it's that guy that Obadiah Stane yelled at in the first Iron Man because that actor was still available, so that's why he's here.
And he was the only one that was.
Yeah,
it's like let's get that guy from Iron Man.
But I was almost expecting like, oh, even our janitor here is the disgruntled janitor because Tony Stark left a mess in his office one day, so he's joined us. It just, that scene got really kind of ridiculous. Everything else about Mysterio I liked, but just in that one,
just that scene you didn't like.
Just that scene went so far into like mustache twirling villain who was explaining his plan to his henchmen for the sake of the audience. That was my only major issue with this movie.
See, maybe I was kind of caught off guard by. I knew he was a villain. I did not expect him to be a former Stark employee. I did not expect like it to be a multi-person operation. Because so that scene, I guess I felt like that was like their rap party or something, or that was like their, you know what I mean? Like you could see like rap parties going that way.
Yeah, but you wouldn't announce every little specific.
I'll have to watch it again. Maybe I thought the music they played was cool.
If you're making a movie and you have a rap party at the end, do you go around and say, "Oh, congratulations, Bob did a great job with the camera work. Bob started doing this. Oh, and Jim, who did like."
Yeah, I'll have to watch it because normally I hate exposition.
And that scene was filled with it.
Yeah, normally I hate. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe if I watch it again, it will bother me. But
How did you not catch that? I saw it at midnight.
I don't know. I
think, got home at 4
that
a.m.
night. I think what I was doing, I was probably watching and trying to figure out. Oh, was that person from a movie, or because that's how Marvel gets you. They make you like start wondering, is this person from this movie? But I thought it was just a really clever way to handle Mysterio, where it was a multi-person operation. Like it wasn't just him. And if you go back to like when the movie started, and you're seeing all these disasters and these monsters, and when I saw the first trailer, I thought, well, maybe they're illusions by Mysterio. Maybe Mysterio's. I thought maybe he's making himself out to be the hero. That's what I figured. I didn't say anything about it. And then when I saw how real the stuff looked, I'm like, well, I can't. That looks pretty real. That'd be really hard to fake. And then when they show, and I thought it was a really clever throwback to Civil War, that same technology Tony had used for his therapy session. Barf.
It made a comeback.
And I'm like, oh, because we should have thought back then. In the wrong hands, this technology could be really impactful.
Years ago, when Civil War came out, I forget if it was the Russo brothers or Kevin Feige said that there is a piece of technology introduced in Civil War that will come into play later.
That must have been
and everyone thought it had to do with Endgame.
Yeah.
I think they were referring to this.
So it made sense. Like I know they inserted Jake Gyllenhaal in that scene. Like that's but for him to be upset that his technology, like I got that. I'm like, it really made a lot of sense. And the Mysterio villain, I don't know if you know much about him, but in the comics, his background is that he was like a theater special effects artist that would create illusions. And I'm like, what a great way to make him modern. To like it made
with the whole news and what's scary is you see these what do they call them, deep fake videos on the internet where they can like superimpose. And like the government is even afraid, like in future elections, that deep fakes could play a role in making it look like a person said something they didn't say, but people will believe it. And that's what this movie really gets at.
Right. And and there was a time where it was just understood video doesn't lie, but that's not true anymore. Which has huge implications. But I think the movie really deals with that, I think, pretty well. And it's a great, as a character for Peter Parker. I think it's great for him because it's like it's a fight over Tony Stark's legacy. Is essentially that's kind of why it's almost like an Iron Man 4.
Well, it's about him taking up the mantle as the new.
I think they're probably gonna make him and Captain Marvel like kind of the face of the MCU. going forward.
I think so.
They're leaning that way.
Them and I'd love to see more of Doctor Strange and Black Panther. The four of them. I'd love to see a new Avengers movie with the four of them as like the core team.
That's gonna happen, I'm sure. With as much money as they've made, and they're the people they're paying the most are not in the movie anymore. So
yeah, goodbye Robert Downey Jr.'s $50 million paycheck every movie.
I know. Yeah. I felt Spider-Man: Homecoming was better as a solo Spider-Man movie in some ways.
I mean, it works as a sort of brilliant little like self-contained solo story.
And I like that. But then again, I don't think we would have wanted to see the same thing again. And I thought the supporting characters are great. I thought MJ and Peter. I mean, I think it's great chemistry. I think it's some of the best chemistry we've seen.
Certainly better than Kirsten Dunst. As much as
she gets a lot of hate, but
no, I don't blame her.
Yeah,
I love the Sam Raimi movies, and it wasn't her.
Well, it's how they wrote her.
Yeah, it's that. I mean, Kirsten Dunst, she's a great actress. If you see her in other things, it's that she did the best with what little material they gave her.
They had her kidnapped every movie,
they never gave her any more material than to be a love interest or a damsel in distress.
And they did that better with the Amazing Spider-Man series, where they had Gwen Stacy involved.
She was more involved. Plus, the fact that she and Andrew Garfield were dating in real life, they had a really strong chemistry.
That stuff I think you can't fake.
Because it wasn't.
Speaking of fakes. But yeah, I think starting the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and I think especially in Far From Home, they've done a better job of portraying their female characters. And Ned is always a delight. I think he had some funnier moments in the first one.
Yeah, the joke with him and that girl like falling in love over a plane ride.
You know who that is, right?
Who
you know who the character is? That's the same character that Elizabeth Banks played in the Raimi trilogy.
Really?
Yeah, and so they just made her in high school.
I did not realize.
Yeah, I think that's true. You might have to fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's
Mysterio fact check you.
Mysterio fact, yeah. Was it Miss Brand or Miss Brandt or something?
Brandt, yes, it was. Yes,
right?
It was.
It's the same character, because she's one of the anchors on the morning news.
Mm-hmm. I do.
Yeah.
Speaking of the news.
Speaking of the news, yeah.
Perhaps the greatest
moment
in the entire movie.
Which I don't know what that says, that's the great... Because it's a great movie without this, but...
But it was the cherry on top.
When I saw that...
to see J.K. Simmons back as, I guess, a different version of Jameson.
He's definitely a different character. A different version of the same character.
Because he's more of, like...
He's Alex Jones.
Yeah, he's like the conspiracy theorist,
right?
InfoWars. Whereas I think in the Raimi trilogy, he's a greedy businessman.
But when you think of when you look back at J. Jameson in the Raimi trilogy, I mean, he is acting like one of those pundits. Like even in how he runs his newspaper, and it made perfect sense when I saw that. At first, I'm watching, I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, is that him? And it took me a second, like, holy crap! And I was so excited, and it made total sense to me. I'm like, of course, that would be the modern interpretation of J. Jameson. I think the only thing that's kind of downer is I don't think there's any way that Peter Parker's going to work for him. But
not after that other reveal,
right?
Which will make the next film infinitely more interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's what a way to end the film.
But I almost think that. It's a different Jameson, and you're right. It's truer to the time. So the Raimi version of Jameson, he was a sensationalist. He would spread conspiracy theories, but he would do so to sell papers.
Right.
Like his ultimate goal was just to sell newspapers, and he didn't really care whether it was true or not. And that was true of, someone like a William Randolph Hearst in the 20th century. That was...
He was a William Randolph Hearst.
That was sort of
how
a corrupt media operated back then. It was all about just sell newspapers, print whatever is, crazy or sell. This Jameson, like Alex Jones, I feel like he's more dangerous because it seems like rather than just trying to sell papers or sell, ad time, he is intentionally trying to promote a narrative.
Mm-hmm. Now, to be fair, we don't really know much about this Jameson yet. Like, it's obviously done in the style of Alex Jones.
Which is not by accident.
No, it's not by accident at all. But it will be interesting to see what happens if they, and I hope they bring him back, because
they have to.
That was such a delight.
When that moment happened, no lie, I was at a midnight showing of it. It's like 3 a.m. at this point, because the movie's over at the end of the credits. Everybody cheered.
That's awesome.
When they saw it was J.K. Simmons.
No, that was fan service, but that was fan service done well. That's, you know what I mean? Like, we've talked about different types of fan service.
Because
they found a way that it made sense. That's
and that it's a different Jameson.
Yeah.
But honestly, who else could you get to play that role?
Nobody.
No one.
Whoever they got would have just not been able to deal with the comparison.
And I would have felt sorry for them because it wouldn't have been their fault.
Yeah.
They probably would have done a great job, but
that's interesting. Is in the comics, and even in the movies, like, J. Jameson, he's seen as a sleazy guy, but they show him with good parts too, and it'll be interesting to see if they do that with this character or not. Like,
he even in the original Spider-Man, when the Green Goblin breaks in, he protects Peter.
He protects Peter, not knowing he's Spider-Man.
But he was doing it to protect Peter.
Right. Yeah.
Because he knew if I tell him, he's gonna kill Peter.
And it's a real subtle thing. Like, you don't even think about it. So I didn't notice it till
he says, like, oh, I don't know, they just send him in the mail. Now, to be fair, again in Jameson fashion, we don't know if he did that to protect Peter or if he did it to protect his investment in getting the pictures of Spider-Man. It could have been either one.
I like to think that
it could have been but that's what's great, is that you kind of, and maybe it was both.
Yeah. Well, then I love that after that, like, Spider-Man shows up. He's like, Spider-Man, I knew we were in this together.
Yeah, or even in Spider-Man 2, he's remorseful. He's like, I suppose Spider-Man really was a hero. And then he steals his uniform back, and
he's a thief.
He's a thief. He's a menace.
Which that was so satisfying to hear him call Spider-Man a menace in this. And that was really a genius move by Disney and Marvel Studios to do that. So,
not Disney.
Well, they own it.
No, they don't.
Did they do?
No, they don't.
They don't own Marvel Studios.
Okay, so
they do have some influence.
They do, but so does Sony. So, okay.
No, but the way it works, so Sony distributes the movies. Marvel Studios does all the creative stuff.
Yes, they do.
They create it, and Sony gets...
But Disney themselves, they're not really...
Oh, they're involved in Marvel Studios.
I think they're less involved with the Spider-Man movies.
How do you know?
Because it's Sony.
I don't no, but Sony just distributes it. It's a Marvel production.
It is.
That's still owned by, like, that's why it feels like it's in the MCU.
But it's being overseen by Kevin Feige.
Right, and we've seen Disney has a hand behind the scenes in a lot of these things, especially casting, especially directors.
They do.
So I mean, who knows who made the decision, but I think it was...
I just know that even now Spider-Man is in kind of a weird position.
Mm-hmm.
Because his film rights are still owned. Sony, if they really wanted to, could pull the plug.
They could. But
now, it's not in their best interest to do so. Fans would revolt.
Now I have to look into this, but I don't know this Marvel Studios makes money off of the Spider-Man movies. I think Sony does.
Yeah, they do, because they're the distributors.
But then Marvel gets, I guess it's part of their... I guess it's a big commercial for the rest of the MCU.
Yeah, they get to use Spider-Man in their other movies. They get... this will advance the MCU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but if it's a Spider-Man solo movie, Sony... So kind of like, that's the reason why we never got any more Hulk solo movies, because Universal has dibs on distribution.
Well, we all know single solo Hulk movies don't do well, unfortunately.
And we also know how well Disney and Universal play together.
Yes, although they did for Glass.
Yeah, that's because it was like an indie movie and it was M. Night's
And
thing.
and like funded it all.
And it was subsidiaries of both of theirs.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, overall, I thought it was a solid. I really enjoyed it a lot. It
So did I.
even though I did predict some things and they kind of made some things. I think they tried to make the Mysterio thing like a twist, but obviously we all knew.
And again, aside from that one really on the nose cheesy scene, that was the
Yeah.
only major issue I had.
I just thought it was fun to see Mysterio. He's like, if Nick Fury finds out, he's gonna shoot me in the head. It's like even Mysterio fears Samuel L. Jackson, which is
Who wouldn't?
right. Which and what did you think of that post credit scene? Did it bother you?
What was the point of it other than, hey, here's a reference to Captain Marvel?
It could be setting up something.
So but I feel like it takes away a little bit because it means that was never Nick Fury we were dealing with in this movie.
Well, Nick Fury's in the movie, but he's at the very end.
But that's what I mean
Yeah.
is
Well, here's why I think it like I didn't know how to feel about it at first. I'll probably have to watch it over again. I'll probably look for signs. But I think why it works for this movie is that it's a movie all about not everything you see is true. And so I thought it kind of played cleverly into that theme. You know what I mean? So I think in any other movie it would have seemed random, but I think because that was the theme of the movie, it did go well. And they even leave you little hints, like, you know, they call him Nick, right? Which that was a big thing in Captain Marvel.
yeah.
They also say, well, how could Nick Fury be tricked? Well, wasn't Nick Fury?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because when I saw like Nick Fury, I think when I saw the second trailer where you saw Mysterio working with Nick Fury, I'm like, oh well, he's got to be a good guy because Nick Fury would know, he would see through that. But it's a movie about it's a movie about fakes, and I think
And about how perception and reality are not always the same thing.
Exactly, and so it kind of made sense. I mean, I was kind of like, oh, I wish it was Nick Fury, but we've seen Nick Fury so much this year. And I think it's. I mean, do you think it's a setup for Captain Marvel 2?
It might be. I mean, he might be on that ship for some other reason.
Could be Guardians of the Galaxy 3, maybe.
All I know is after, not even just after seeing J.K. Simmons, but after the revelation and the unmasking of Spider-Man to the world, that instantly made whatever they do with Spider-Man next is going to be very interesting. And we are in territory we've never been in before.
Yeah.
Where, like Iron Man, he has been unmasked, not voluntarily so,
Right.
as Tony Stark did.
Right.
And, you know, how is that going to affect his life? How's that? Are he and Aunt May going to have to move into the Avengers facility just for their own safety and security?
Here's the thing. Are people going to believe it? Because that's another question. How many people believe this version of Jameson?
I know that Flash won't believe it because he thinks so little of Peter.
he gets some great one-liners. Like some of it was in the trailer, but it was still funny in the theater.
I'm still not sold on this Flash. I'm used to seeing him as like a jock bully, not like a fellow nerd.
Oh, I love, and maybe
Like-
just because like I was a nerd in high school. I love that they all go to like a science high school and that they all I love the new interpretations because they're different.
They are. And I guess it does play into the fact that nerds can be bullies to other nerds.
Yeah.
Look at the internet.
So yeah, I thought it was definitely a nice surprise to see the Skrulls. I do like that they made them good. I mean, this goes back to Captain Marvel, and I don't know. I mean, where do they go now? I mean,
We're in uncharted territory because for the first time, we know there are more movies coming next year, I guess.
we don't even know what's coming. I think Guardians 3 is what 2021.
Yeah, but we don't have. Before, they had these release dates years in advance, and we knew the order.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that there's a Black Widow prequel being made.
Yeah, I guess
We know that, James Gunn is going to do Guardians 3 after he does the Suicide Squad for DC, which I don't even think they've started filming yet.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a while.
Right.
And maybe we'll get a Black Panther or Doctor Strange sequel.
And we're gonna get a Captain Marvel sequel at some point too.
But
They didn't tell us when. I wonder because San Diego Comic-Con is this month, so hopefully they'll give us an idea. Because I would think if they weren't using this opportunity, they have to use this opportunity to say something.
Yeah, because for the first time in a long time, Marvel fans honestly have no idea what's coming.
Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I think it's refreshing.
Right.
It's unlimited possibilities.
Do you think they are going to bring Venom into Spider-Man? The Venom that they... Because I think it could happen.
They can't.
Why?
Because of one line in Venom.
Oh, with the aliens?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and they've never retconned anything in the MCU?
And I hate that they do that, and they shouldn't.
And I'm saying they could easily... I think it would be interesting to bring Tom Hardy in.
No.
No.
If you were going to do that, you would have had to do it from the start. Or make the Venom movie in such a way that it could have existed in the MCU.
He's just mad about one line.
Because it throws off the continuity.
Continuity!
It has to make sense.
But they've done that in other Marvel movies.
Yeah, and it's stupid when they do it.
How many times did Tony Stark retire?
That's different.
How?
You could just say he came out of retirement.
Yeah. Okay, Rocky Balboa.
But when it's clear that this movie is set in this universe, you can't
They didn't say that aliens don't exist. He was just surprised a little bit.
Okay, but if the Avengers are like world famous.
Yeah. I don't know. I did hear that they're talking about putting him in the next Spider-Man movie. I mean, it's a rumor. I don't know how
and
true it is.
I sincerely hope they don't.
I think that we're going to be doing this podcast after the next Spider-Man 3. Hopefully, we haven't had a Spider-Man 3 in over a decade. And
it's got some pretty big jazz dancing shoes to fill.
Yeah. I think whatever it is, it'll be better than the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3. And
even Sam Raimi wasn't a fan of that.
I know. And I think we'll be talking about this, and I think that you're going to say something along the lines, well, we're going to play this back when we do that podcast, and I think you're going to say something like, well, I didn't think it was going to work, but I think it actually worked pretty well with Venom.
I'm not commenting on whether or not it would work. I'm not commenting on how good a movie it would be to see Tom Hardy interact with Tom Holland. I'm merely stating that if they do that, it throws off the continuity, and it kind of ruins it a little bit. And I will still... Even if the movie's amazing, I will still say, but they completely threw off the continuity.
Can you do me a favor and just like kind of yell that in the theater and like put your finger up? It ruins the continuity.
I will be the one person in the theater to do that.
All right. Well, that is all we have for this edition of Philly Film Brothers podcast. Please follow us on Facebook, on Twitter. Search Dirk Daily, and we'll see you next time.